and I'm joined today by comedian and wrestling fan and occasional commentator Ollie Neve. Oliver, thank you for being here.
No worries, thanks for having me on.
So, what is the match or moments that first got you into wrestling?
Oh, well, when I was, would have been about 4 or 5, I think. I was pretty young, but there's a guy at school who was a bit of a difficult guy to get on with. And I found myself kind of trying to get on with him and stay on his good side because he was threatening. And he eventually basically started talking about how much he loved wrestling. And I thought, oh, well, I'll give it a go. And he came round mine, brought, I think it would have been Royal Rumble 92 he brought round at the time, which is, of course, the best Royal Rumble ever, of course. And we watched it, and I just was hooked ever since, just thought it was fantastic. And then, luckily, the garden centre that my dad would go to every Sunday had a little video section that sold WWF videos. So, from there, I'd get one sort of about once a month.
That's Royal Rumble 92 is kind of a traditionally very good starting point for getting into wrestling. That and Royal Rumble 2000 are generally considered the best Royal Rumbles. The first sort of clip I saw was obviously the classic of Mankind being thrown off thrown off the Hell in the Cell by the Undertaker and then chokeslammed through it. And my initial reaction was, what the fuck is this? This is brilliant. But the first proper match I was into was, do you remember the classic TLC matches between the Hardys, the Dudleys, and Edge and Christian?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they were amazing.
Absolutely incredible match. They really just sort of set the standard for that sort of match. And
completely changed everything as well. It was completely different from what had come before it as well, I think.
Yeah, there'd never really been anything like that. And obviously there'd been sort of hardcore wrestling and street fights and brawls, but that had more sort of like acrobatics and stunts in it than just, twatting someone with a bin.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, that spear spot from Edge and Jeff Hardy at Wrestlemania still terrifies me.
Oh, where he did what drops from hanging the belt. That's,
yes.
I mean, yeah, it's just insane. I think there's the bits in, I think it's Edge's book where he talks about just how much it hurt and how he sort of stars. And that's one way to make money, yeah.
Yeah, no wonder Edge needed neck surgery later in his career. And Jeff Hardy developed a pretty extensive painkiller addiction.
Yeah, although I think I look at Jeff Hardy and I kind of think that probably would have happened anyway. I just get that vibe from him.
Yeah, it seems he seems like, well, his whole thing is like the charismatic enigma, and then I don't know how familiar you are with his work at Impact. I'm not really, but Willow seems very, very strange.
Yeah, I did kind of enjoy Willow because it was just weird. I didn't watch it often, but I just sort of tuned in every now and again. I just remember tuning in one time and going, "What's this? Is that Jeff Hardy?" So yeah, that was odd. And his match with Sting was that was
Victory Road 2011, if you can call it a match.
Yeah, that was. I mean, it's fun to watch, but for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, it's properly car crash television. Like, this is so terrible. You love it. Like kind of Russo era WCW as well. The New Blood Rising event with Buff Baggles' mother on a pole. That sort of
these are the...
that's my kind of peak Russo for me. Sorry, what were you saying?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that's what I love about wrestling. Though it's kind of there's so many things in wrestling that you would never see anywhere else, and I think it's one of those things where if you try and introduce someone to it with that kind of stuff, they'll just look at you and go, okay. But it's one of those things that if you delve into wrestling, and obviously the deeper you go, the weirder it gets. And there's just I think there's sort of a bottomless pit of weird. Like the more you look, the weirder you will find.
You will find really strange stuff. I mean, even beyond the mainstream wrestling, you get to stuff like Shikara, which is all comedy wrestling with people dressed as fire ants, or Mr. Azerbaijan and weird, or DDT in Japan with Ibushi wrestling the blow up sex doll. It gets pretty weird out in the wilderness, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. And it's just one. I think as wrestling fans, you kind of become a little bit immune to it, and it's not until you're saying to someone like, "Oh yeah, he wrestled a blow-up doll," and they're like, "Sorry, what?" And it makes you, you start to realize that, oh yeah, it is pretty weird.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
You get kind of desensitized to just how weird it is in conversation. Like trying to explain broken Matt Hardy to a non-wrestling fan.
Very true. He is like, there's something about him that he's just perfect for wrestling fans. And it says something about like that gimmick could become so big in wrestling, but anyone outside of it, if they see it, would instantly go, well, this is nonsense. This is rubbish.
This is
it's so specific.
But
so that's wonderful.
You just get to you just end up kind of tolerating it. And with the broken Matt Hardy gimmick, I think it's been responsible for some of the most inventive matches I've seen in quite a while, like the final deletion between him and Jeff, where they're shooting fireworks at each other and hiding in dilapidated boats, and they've got the Lake of Reincarnation, just absolute mind-boggling nonsense.
I know, and it's weird to think that like that kind of, obviously it was so weird and so unusual. And it's like now when you look at the recent Wrestlemania with the Firefly Funhouse match and the Boneyard match, and also it's kind of like they actually owe a lot to what he did, and it's kind of like it's almost like those kind of weird matches are becoming accepted and like they're almost mainstream, I guess, in a sense. So it's kind of weird to think that it's actually now becoming like an accepted thing.
Yeah, having these proper like cinematic matches, which you wouldn't have really got, because the Firefly Funhouse match wasn't necessarily a match as it was a deconstruction of John Cena's career and psyche in real time.
Yeah,
but it was all more. And you go back and you see, I picked up on little bits that I'd missed the first run through, like when he was singing Nikki Bella's theme tune, obviously John Cena's ex-partner, just right in his face and sort of things. That I
didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
I'll have to watch it again because I didn't pick up on that at all. But I have heard people say like, repeated watches find more things. So yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those ones that's eminently rewatchable, and it does draw not just from the broken gimmick, but there is kind of a lineage of those sorts of matches. Lucha Underground have done it for years. Yeah. Obviously, when they were operational, Lucha Underground did it. Sting versus Vampiro in WCW. You could argue that was it. Boiler Room Brawls, but all the way back to Goldust versus Rowdy Roddy Piper, their Hollywood brawl when they were chasing each other down. Yeah, so there is kind of a history, but it was really a novelty, whereas I can really foresee it on the big pay-per-views becoming a lot more of a regular occurrence.
Yeah, I mean, especially right now. I mean, if there's no crowd, then you may as well turn it into a film, I guess, right? If there's no audience.
You might as well hang it up, because a lot of wrestling without the atmosphere looks a bit strange. So, having ways to artificially insert that atmosphere might make for a more seamless watch in a way.
Yeah, definitely. As long as I'm concerned they might overuse it. If you get like one or two every pay-per-view, then it could start to become a bit sort of, it's not so special, I think. But we'll have to see, because apparently tomorrow night, this lockdown thing, I lose track of what day it is. The Friday bank holiday has not made it any easier at all.
No.
But they're saying, the two Money in the Bank matches are supposed to be sort of quite cinematic and kind of following that sort of formula, apparently. So that could be interesting.
And they're both, we'll obviously talk about both of those in detail, but they're apparently happening simultaneously, which...
Oh, really?
Money in the Bank, just one singular match is a clusterfuck enough. So having both of them go on at the same time, I am worried that it might be a shit show.
Yeah, it's probably quite good that was pre-recorded, because I think if that was happening live, that's well, I guess we'll see. But it's another one of those things where, especially with WWE over the years, there's so many moments where I've kind of learned to, when they say something and when they suggest something and put it forward, to kind of go, well, I'll wait and see. because there's so many things they suggest that you just kind of your instant reaction is nope, no, that's not going to work. But then sometimes I'd say 40% of the time you actually kind of go, okay, no, that was all right, that worked. So I've learned to kind of hold my tongue and wait and see, I think.
Yeah, I try to reserve judgment because I don't want to dismiss a gimmick out of hand. Because when I first saw the New Day, when they weren't, the New Day as we understand them, I was a bit turned off by them. But now it's just so ridiculous; it's a lot more fun. Whereas conversely, you see stuff like the Nexus and the Wyatt family, and you get really emotionally invested in it, and then WWE has a habit of regularly bungling it recently. So I try to remain detached now.
Yeah, absolutely. There's you kind of learn from too many disappointments, I guess. And there's always so many that, like, I think early on they'd make a mistake and it would kind of go a bit wrong, and then as it's gone further on, especially with the used to feel like they just made mistakes, but now it feels like they just get to a certain point and just go nah, and then just stop it.
Yeah,
is the vibe I get.
Yeah, there's quite a famous term, Vince McMahon's sort of 3-week push, and people like recently Ricochet, Humberto Carrillo, Andrade, those Cedric Alexander, all Vince gets hot on them temporarily, but then and just ends up burying them because he just sort of gets bored of them. And I suppose when you've got so many wrestlers and so much talent, like he's sort of like a kid in a candy store that he just picks one up and then drops it and then picks one up sort of, or more in a toy store.
Totally, yeah. Yeah, it's like buying a kid a new toy and they kind of go woo, and then 5 seconds later they're distracted by a box or something. It's a shame because it's real people's lives who are extremely talented and have worked long and hard to get there, and then he kind of goes, "Nah, I'm bored of you now."
Yeah, and then he doesn't have anything for them.
Yeah, I mean the biggest, the one that I keep sort of coming back to is Apollo Crews, because he was obviously like I look at him, I just think he's got something. There's definitely something there. And there's just been like 3 or 4 times where they've kind of given him a bit of a push and then just given up. And it seems like it's happened with this one as well, where he was in Money in the Bank, he was in the ladder match, and then they suddenly just went, no. Yeah, I don't know if it's an injury or something like that, but yeah, it's a shame.
Yeah, and do we really need Baron Corbin in another one of these? I would have much preferred Apollo Crews.
True. I get the feeling Corbin and certainly Otis, I think they are the catchers. They are there to catch the people that are jumping off things. That's how I see it.
Yeah, they're kind of like the utility men in the Rumble. And as much as I loved the Otis Ziggler whole Mandy Rose storyline, I thought it was hilarious, and I just enjoy Otis as a thing.
Fair enough.
He's not exactly someone you could reasonably put in the championship picture, is he?
No, I mean to be fair, if he won this, if he came out with the briefcase, I mean, yeah.
I would be so happy. But another question I wanted another question I wanted to ask you is if you have a favourite match or a couple of favourites, what is it? Are they?
Okay. First one that comes to mind probably be Bret Hart versus Owen Hart, WrestleMania 10, because it still holds up. Like I remembered watching WrestleMania 10 and thinking it was amazing, and then a few years later thinking it probably wasn't that good. It was a long time ago, and I watched it and was like, no, that is still amazing. It's still a fantastic match. I mean, I'm a bit of a Bret Hart mark anyway. I'm actually where I'm sat at the moment. I've got 2 Bret Hart pop figurines beside me, but so that probably helps. But it was just an amazing match, and I guess with them being brothers and being trained from birth pretty much side by side, it kind of makes sense that it would be great.
Yeah, and I think they both got unfairly pigeonholed as purely technical, wrestling specialists, but when they got a storyline, they were. I think they're really underrated for their character work. Both of the Hart brothers, like they could hang with the best of them. They could cut decent promos, and they weren't amazing promos, but they still they were really just spectacular all round. I thought, and that's a very good match for it.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, I mean, I sound a Bret Mark, but I always thought like his storytelling was what made him a star. Like he was fantastic in the ring, but so are loads of people. Like Dean Malenko was amazing in the ring, but I think if you can't tell a story, then you're not going to make it. And I think he's one of the best at just getting that story across in the ring.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, especially since you have so many people that the standard of athleticism and fitness is a lot higher in current wrestling than it was in the Attitude or the steroid era, as I call it. The one just before that, with the Ultimate Warrior being, just leaking human growth hormone on the ring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking like a bag of chicken fillets. Yeah.
Yeah. One of my personal favourites has to be Bret Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. I forgot the WrestleMania it was at. It was one of the ones with the very, very tacky logos. I think it was 12 or 13.
I want to say 12. Yeah. I think it was 12.
Just the one of the few times they pulled off the double turn, and it's just an absolutely spectacular match. And obviously, I think that and the King of the Ring win was really the catalyst for what became Stone Cold Steve Austin and then the Attitude Era. So it's got everything. It's a really good match. It's got a really interesting double turn and amazing psychology, and also it's historically very significant in wrestling.
Yeah, no, it's an amazing choice because it's such a fantastic match, and it's the fact that they get the whole story across without saying a word. That's where I start to get a bit pretentious and start to go over the top. When I start to say, you can talk about ballet and you talk about things like that, and kind of like interpretive dance if you want or anything like that. But it does have that element that it's like, of course, it's not on the same level as those kind of art forms, but in a sense, I think it is an art form that they are purely with movement, with performance, telling a very compelling story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I think that's when people sort of knock wrestling and kind of say, it's just people running around in spandex. I'm like, yes, it is, and it does also involve little people who are pretending to be leprechauns, but it also has like amazing stories told by fantastic athletes. So it's a mixed bag.
Because you're part athlete and you're part actor as well, so you'll have it. You're really covering two bases, and a lot of the stuff where people go, "Oh, this is fake" or whatever. Why do you watch this? And then a comedian I know called James Meakin has this bit where he goes, "Oh, did you like Game of Thrones? Well, guess what? Dragons aren't real." It's wrestling. I think is one of those things where outsiders, one of those sort of fandoms or niches that people outside of it who don't like it can be really quite hostile to it for some reason.
Yeah. It has a certain perception, doesn't it? I think, and especially people who are a bit homophobic tend to start popping up for that one. But also, I mean, it's one of those things where, similarly, like when people would say, it's not real, and I'd say, do you like Die Hard? And they'd say, yeah, and I go, it's not real, don't you? So that was sort of a thing I used to say a while ago. But the thing now is like, now that the Marvel films are huge and that everyone watches the Marvel films, like everyone from the kind of the geeky kid sat in his bedroom playing World of Warcraft all the way up to like the plasterer down the road, they all watch the Marvel films. I just think, well, you can't knock wrestling anymore because wrestling and Marvel films, I kind of think they're essentially the same. Big characters, good versus evil, ends in a big fight.
Exactly.
It's the same.
And if you can suspend disbelief for a mild-mannered scientist to turn into a giant green ogre thing, or someone to travel through time, and like Benedict Cumberbatch traveling through time, then you can suspend belief thinking that these people really hate each other and want to beat each other up for 20 minutes.
Absolutely, and if you like the Incredible Hulk, Brock Lesnar. If you like Captain America, John Cena. And there's kind of there's parallels across the board. It's the same thing, just with less special effects, as far as I'm concerned. But
wrestling has never been shy of, let's say, borrowing from pop culture.
Yeah, true. Usually a decade later, but still, yeah.
Yeah. Now remember, obviously, Razor Ramon is just Tony Montana, isn't it? But it's still really good. And that ladder match versus Shawn Michaels is incredible.
Yeah, no, I mean that's definitely, that could be in like anyone's top 5. So yeah. But it's in that story that when he pitched it as like being a bit like Scarface, that Vince was like, I've never heard of it, and just wasn't interested at all. I'm pretty sure he did that with like Pirates of the Caribbean. Somebody suggested some kind of pirate gimmick, and he was like, I've never watched it, so it doesn't count. So yeah, it's still up to him in the end, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, but yeah, he does. Well, he's been ever since WCW shut down. He's been the undisputed emperor of wrestling, and apparently, famously, he doesn't like or watch movies or films or TV very much. So he just his kind of pop culture knowledge. If he doesn't get it, he just won't use it, sort of thing. And that's one of the drawbacks of having someone have such influence on wrestling for so long, is that you kind of end up with the business almost stagnating in a way, because you've still got the same person who's very clearly, especially in the last few years, I think became out of touch. And a lot of the good in WWE, like NXT and the pay-per-views, I think happens in spite of Vince McMahon now, rather than because of him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. And it's one of those things where when you're watching it, you kind of it's this weird thing where you can see his worldview. I think is you're like viewing the world through his eyes when you watch any wrestling. I think to an extent, because it's always kind of hyper macho. It's always there's almost like a toxic element to it. I think in terms of like things like if someone annoys you, you should punch them. That's kind of like the morality that it sets across. And so much of it, I just look at it and think, this is just Vince's mind being played out by pieces that he employs to an extent.
Yeah. Obviously not so much now, but you had the tits and arse attitude era bit, and the diva search, which was even just as bad. You have his fascination with burps, vomiting, pooing, farting. Yeah. Just he clearly just loves anything involving that, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he has kind of a very defined and perhaps quite juvenile sense of humour. And anything that goes along with that seems to be part of the course, which is, not great.
Yeah, sometimes it can be genuinely
funny. Women's revolution happened, but
yes,
yeah, no, that is true. That is true.
Yeah, like you've got on the high end of the scale when Chris Jericho pissed in William Regal's tea, but then when you've got on the low end when he decided to give Natalia irritable bowel syndrome for no real reason.
Ah, yes.
Other than just he likes farts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there was that period where any diva who kind of seemed to be anything other than stick thin suddenly had a gimmick or a storyline where she was like a pig or something like that, and it's like that's
kind of Piggy James, especially, yeah,
and I think Molly Holly as well, and it's just I don't know, it's just a shame more than anything else.
It's really horrid because they're like by no means they're athletic women who just weren't like stick thin with like bolt on fake tits. So they got sort of body shamed for having amazing bodies.
Yeah. I mean, I had there's a mate of mine who you'd probably be good talking to him because he has wrestling knowledge coming out of every pore. But he was saying a few years back, where he was saying kind of when you have women in wrestling and they're there kind of purely as tits and arse, he was like, if I wanted tits and arse, I wouldn't be watching wrestling. Like there's plenty of places I can get that. Like I've got, I've got magazines, I've got DVDs, I've got videos, I've got the whole lot. If that was what I was looking for, I wouldn't be watching wrestling. So why is that there?
You'd find it even before the internet. Like you could find it in the bush in your local park,
exactly,
with your local pervert. There's always been that. So it's very nice that it took them a while, but they actually seem to employ female wrestlers for their wrestling ability rather than anything else.
It's shock horror, right?
Yeah, it's just completely alien logic, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so what wrestling do you tend to watch at the moment? Do you stick with WWE or do you watch AEW or New Japan, anything else?
I've been drifting from WWE. As like I say, the kind of firstly, the fact there's no crowd or no audience is a bit weird. I'm kind of slowly moving away from it a little bit just because it is a bit odd. But I had been moving away from it a little bit anyway, just because of that kind of more and more noticing the kind of toxic worldview element, I guess, of the kind of stories they tell and the kind of the people they choose to be the heroes versus the people who aren't. More and more I was kind of looking at the heels, the bad guys, and kind of going, well, they've got a point. So why are they the bad guy in this situation?
Yeah.
I think in the late 90s when it was more grey areas and you could kind of, see both sides, that was fine. But it's just when the hero is the one that punches a guy in the face for making a good point, I'm like, I don't get this anymore.
Or you get the fourth cuckolding storyline in the same year, but the person doing the cuckolding is the good guy for some reason.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's just so much of the logic of it doesn't kind of make sense. It's still WWE and it's still the biggest one, and it is where the best wrestlers are. The sad thing is seeing them not being used all the time or being kind of given 5-minute matches. That's when I'm not happy about it. But I still go there because it's still the biggest, best produced, best staffed wrestling company on the planet. NXT, I would say, is almost always better than the main shows, Raw and SmackDown.
Takeovers, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, they're just... There's something about the way that they tell stories that I just keep watching it, just thinking, please let this keep happening. Because I wonder how long it's going to be before they kind of step in and go, hold on, we need more vomiting and people, and little people and exploitation, that kind of thing. So I'm kind of hoping they don't ruin it, but we'll see. In terms of, I do watch a little bit of New Japan from time to time. I tend to find I end up. It takes me about 6 months to watch a Wrestle Kingdom because they're like 5 hours long. So I will get through them, but it just takes me a while. So there's that side of things. I still think there's actually a lot of great wrestling, like in the UK. Progress is still really good. It's not as good as it was, but still really good. And weirdly, the one that's grabbed my attention in the past probably week, because I've had the time to look around and watch other stuff, is, do you know OTT, Over the Top, in Ireland?
I've heard the name, but I've not really been familiar with their work. But obviously, people like Finn Balor and Jordan Devlin and Becky Lynch come from that promotion, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah,
and it's one of those ones where, like, I'd heard, again, I'm similar to you, I'd heard the name, but I hadn't thought much about it. And then it came up as like on YouTube, it's like their free match, and I just went, oh, go on, I'll give it a watch, not do anything else. So I watched Jordan Devlin versus David Starr, and it's the best match I've seen in years. It's from the 5th year anniversary or something, I think, like that. And it's fantastic. And I mean, certainly someone with your political leanings, I would think you would be impressed with David Starr, because that's kind of his gimmick at the moment, that he's trying to... It's a real gimmick, though, because he's genuinely trying to get a union started for pro wrestlers. So
that's good. That's very, very long overdue.
No, definitely. And he's got a few of them into Equity, the showbiz sort of theatre and performing union.
Yes.
So he's actually got Equity to take on wrestlers, and that's his big achievement at the moment. So he was doing this whole angle with Jordan Devlin, where Devlin was I'll give it the condensed version, but Devlin was the import killer, was his gimmick. So basically, anyone that came into OTT from somewhere else, often America, he pitched himself as the import killer. So they'd come in, he'd beat them, they'd disappear, and he'd be like, anyone that you bring in as a big name, I'm going to beat them. And so that was his whole thing. And then when he left for NXT UK, David Starr started this thing about saying, I'm now the import killer and you're now the import. So he's saying, you've gone to work for $1 billion corporation. I'm the one still here on the indies. You're the import. And it's a really nice little story.
That's a really nice touch, because you sort of end up kind of becoming everything you hate, similar to CM Punk's run, where he was going to sign for WWE and he was rubbing it at Ring of Honor's face, and that sort of thing. And I've obviously
definite shades of Punk.
Yeah. Obviously, I've just looked into David Starr. I'd only heard the name recently, but heard good things, so I had to check him out. And I've looked at who he's wrestled for. Obviously, Ring of Honor's no joke, and he's made one appearance for TNA and WWE tryout. But I think his leanings and his quest for union probably means that he's not going to appear in a major league, in a big promotion, especially not WWE for the foreseeable future.
He was doing some good stuff for Progress, and the story is that WWE, because they worked closely with Progress, stepped in and said, "You won't use this man anymore," and so they didn't. Which, you know, I guess that makes sense. If he's trying to start a union, they're not exactly big fans of that sort of thing. So, apart from that weird union faction they created in like 99, 2000, that was weird.
Yeah, didn't Big Show or someone hold up a bit of wood? That is all I remember about that.
They did. They came out with 2x4s. Strange. And I, while we're talking about other wrestling that I watch and other great wrestling companies, of course, it would be remiss of me to not mention DOA, because I have to. That's my little plug that I have to get.
Yes, you're quite involved with. That's a good segue. You're quite involved with DOA, aren't you? You've actually done a commentary for a match involving Kip Sabian, who's obviously now signed and on telly regularly for AEW, trained by the Knight family, of course. WAW, shout out Norwich.
Yeah, no, totally. I've been doing it for a few years now. I think 5 years maybe. I was kind of. I like to say I was there from day one, but there was a sort of period in the middle where I wasn't there. So I like to claim that I was there for the whole thing, but there was a big gap where I wasn't. But yeah, I went in, did a bit of commentary on the first show, and I've been doing it ever since. And there's been, obviously Kip was there. I think we've had a lot of interesting people come through the door as well. Various different folks who've been along the way. There's some fantastic guys in there at the moment. We've kind of got a new crop that are coming, and it's just really fun, to be honest, just to do commentary on it.
So how did you get involved in the first place?
Well, you mentioned WAW. That I trained with them for about a year, and I had about 3 matches. And as fun as that was, it kind of hurts, and I'm kind of a wimp. So I sort of I was there when the chap who started DOA was kind of involved with WAW, and when he went off and started DOA, he decided to give me a call and asked if I wanted to come along and do something with them. So I said I'd give commentary a try. So that's how it came about. But yeah.
So you started off wrestling, but then went into commentary. Was it when you took one of your bumps in the first match that you started to realise maybe this isn't for you?
It would be nice if it was that quick. I think if it had been that, I would have saved a lot of time. If it would have been that early on. I took a. If I'm honest, I did some of that sort of hush hush, don't talk about it style backyard wrestling when I was in my late teens, early 20s, I guess. And so when I went there and was taking bumps, it was a matter of me kind of thinking, well, this is better than grass. This is actually, there's a little bit of give to it. It's still horrible, but at least it's not, just solid ground. So that side of things I was kind of okay with. But just as things went on, it was just kind of like, I just kind of thought, I don't think this is a world I belong in. Like, all these people seem quite tough, and I'm not sure I am. But and there was also other stuff that went on with, like, there's another guy who was there training at the same time that I was sharing a flat with, and he owed me a lot of rent, and he disappeared in the middle of the night. So that was
charming of him.
So yeah, I mean, it was double-sided, because also I didn't ask him for it, and then after about 3 or 4 months, when I eventually said, by the way, do you want to pay rent? So it was kind of a fault on both sides, but there's a whole other story. It was a weird year, a very weird year.
You should have reasonably expect someone to pay rent, though. You shouldn't take 3-4 months to have to bring it up. Like, if you'd be so kind, mate.
He asked a few times. There was like a couple of times when he'd sort of walk in my room and just go like, "Do you want me to pay you the rent now?" And I'd be like, "Oh, we'll sort it out. It'll be fine." So yeah, I should have just said yes, please.
Yeah.
So
you live in there, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, it was an interesting situation because it meant that because we had the place we were in had like tiny bedrooms that were freezing cold, but it had a weirdly huge living room. So that meant that when people would come and stay for the training camps or for the shows, they would often just say to us, "Oh, by the way, that person's staying at yours tonight." And we go, "Oh, okay." So we had just random wrestlers sleeping on our floor. I'd come home from work and be like, "Oh, hi, you're asleep on my sofa." So that was strange, but interesting.
Just random big sweaty men round your house late at night.
Pretty much, yeah. There was. I don't think there were any particularly big names, but I know. Do you know Charlie Morgan, who did some stuff with Progress and NXT UK?
Yeah. I've heard of Charlie Morgan. Yeah.
She was a frequent sofa stayer. Yeah, because she stayed so regularly, she had sort of her own sleeping spot. Because the place had come with furniture, and I brought a bed with me. We just left a bed in the living room. So that became her bed. So that was, if anyone came in and sat on the bed, it was kind of like, right, that's not yours. So I'm not quite sure how that happened, but yeah, she was a frequent stayer.
That's sort of fantastic how they just decided that they were staying at your house.
Yeah, normally they'd been told by WAW that was going to happen, and then we'd be told later, which, that's how it works.
Isn't it part of kind of almost, paying your dues in the business, I suppose?
I think so. I was told later on that the chap who wasn't paying me rent was getting money for it and wasn't telling me. But again, another story for another time.
Charming gentleman. Yeah. So you've been doing
he was
for several years now. What's been the favourite match you've had to call? Your favourite match to call in your commentary career?
You know what? There was. I think it was called. I'm sorry, exact wording. It was something like the Beach Ball Party Death Match or the Beach Party Beach Ball Death Match, something along those lines. But it was Damien against Brad Slayer. So Brad Slayer was the tag team partner of Kip Sabian when they were Special Edition, and Damien, you may know, used to be Bret the Craft Meadows in WAW, and they had this. I mean, we have a few odd matches from time to time, often involving Damien, and it was just so strange. They ended up having like sort of jousting with inflatable palm trees. Is the bit that jumps out and stays in my mind. So yeah, interesting.
So never a dull moment commentating. I personally, obviously as a fan, you dream of kind of getting involved in any wrestling in any capacity. What appealed to me, I never wanted to be a wrestler because despite my rugged, hard exterior, Ollie, I too am a bit of a wimp. I do not like pain for any reason.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of hurt. It's not on my list. I'm with you.
Although I did when I did my own sort of backyard wrestling equivalent with my friend. Me and my friend decided to have a wrestling match at I say friend, some kid I met. So I have a wrestling match in a play world, and I managed to fracture my arm jumping off an inflatable slide, and I sort of no-sold that. Yeah. So 8-year-old me is a lot harder than 24-year-old me.
I do find that, like, as you get older, things hurt more and they take longer to heal.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you develop some sort of semblance of self-preservation, I suppose, as well.
Yeah. I think you've become more aware of the consequences. That's what it is, isn't it? You kind of, you learn from experience what happens.
Yeah, probably a lot of the stupid stuff you do informs your reticence in the future. Yeah.
I should say, I should say I never intended to do it either. It was someone I worked with was already doing some stuff with WAW, and he'd said that he could possibly get me in as a ring announcer if I wanted to do that, because I was already doing some radio stuff. And I said, yeah, sounds interesting. And he said, if you wanted to do that, they've said you'll have to come down and train just in case you ever have to get in the ring. So that was how they managed to rope me in.
Yeah, so I suppose imagine like if anything called for it, if you're ring announcing or reffing, you'd probably have to learn at least how to take a bump, I imagine.
Yeah, and I think that was the plan. And once I did it, I was kind of like, actually, this isn't too bad. I could wrestle, so I gave it a go. But yeah.
Yeah. Did you get to a stage in your free matches where you had any sort of finisher or signature move, or was it a bit too early to have that established?
I practiced the diamond dust. I never got to use it, but I practiced. Do you know diamond dust? The one where you kind of sit on the top rope in the corner and you kind of hook your arm around their neck and then you flip over and it kind of comes down to a stunner. Do you know?
Yeah, I can sort of see it in my head. I don't know who performs it. I imagine Diamond Dallas Page if it's called that, but I can see it in my head, sort of thing.
Yeah, so I remember giving that a go and just kind of saying like, I could do this. I think it's gonna be my finish. And they were all just saying, don't land on your bum. if you're constantly landing on your bum, you're going to do yourself a lot of damage over the years. So yeah, that was the advice I was given. The whole plan was though, because usually the first question when I mentioned it to people, certainly people who don't watch a lot of wrestling, they go, "What was your name? What was your ring name? What were you called?" And I was Lucky Ollie Dean was my thing. So I was supposed to be lucky. So my intention was to learn a ton of pins, like as many different pin combinations as I could. And then my thing was intended to be that I was going to sort of just quickly win with a pin. So I was going to have like 100 different roll-ups, and it would be like a quick roll-up and then run out the ring and run away and get the lucky win was the idea.
Yeah, I imagine that would get quite a decent amount of heat, pissing people off as well.
Yeah, that was kind of. I mean, they did kind of say, like, "Are you a heel or a face? Like, which is that a good guy or a bad guy thing?" And I was like, "Don't know. Depends on how you look at it, I suppose."
Also, I think a lot of that gimmick is so ambiguous that it would really depend on how you were received, how you would then alter it to be a bit more heelish with it, like all face with it.
Yeah, I mean, you're either like the king of the upset, so you're either like the 1-2-3 Kid Razor Ramon thing, or you're the jammy little git that wins even though he shouldn't, kind of thing. So that was the idea, and it worked nicely for 3 matches. So yeah.
Where did you get to wrestle?
It was so the where they have the WWE Academy shows in the. Is it the Owen Barnes Centre, I want to say, the sort of Cossey Community Centre area?
Yeah.
So most of it was there. I had one at Epic Studios, which was crazy because I was in a Rumble. And I also won a Rumble in a car park for charity, so that was fun.
So a short career in the ring, but an interesting one. But you're enjoying your life as a commentator now.
Yeah, it's plays to my strengths more, I think, anyway.
Yeah. So I will obviously leave a link to DOA's socials and stuff and WWE's socials in the description. But I think it's time we get to the meat and potatoes of the podcast. Obviously, Money in the Bank is coming up on Sunday, and me and Ollie are just going to go through the card and discuss who we're going to think it wins and why. I've just checked the card. A couple must have been announced very recently because two of the matches I didn't know were happening. Obviously, there's the prelim, but we'll still talk about that anyway because I like Cesaro. But first, the first is the prelim. Jeff Hardy versus Cesaro. Who have you got, Ollie, and why?
I think it's probably going to be Jeff Hardy because they seem to hate Cesaro. So there we go. I would give it to Cesaro personally, but Jeff Hardy's Jeff Hardy, isn't he? So yeah.
Yeah, I've never understood. I think they're probably going to go with Jeff Hardy on that reason, and also if they were, I've seen dirt sheet rumors, so obviously don't put too much stock in that before they decided on Braun Strowman, that Jeff Hardy was going to go over Goldberg for the title at WrestleMania, which I would have loved to see, being a big fan of Jeff Hardy. But I think Braun Strowman is more realistic to beat Goldberg. And
yeah, I was going to say I would have loved to see it. As not being a big fan of Goldberg, that would have been fun.
yeah, I was done with Goldberg after the Undertaker match because I was like, he's already ended Bret Hart's career. He could have killed the Undertaker, and now, and then he went on to obviously take a big steaming dump on the Fiend in Saudi Arabia. So
yeah, could you imagine if it was like, yes, Lesnar, you ended the streak, but I ended his life, so I win.
That would be a hell of a promo. Christ, imagine a dream match then between him and Jimmy Snuka.
Yeah, the murderers. That'd be an interesting tag team, if nothing else.
It would be very, very shooty, very close to the nose. But the thing with Cesaro, I just don't understand. The only thing I can think of is because he's foreign, but he's still white, so that should be fine over there. But he's got the look. He can work. I haven't heard him do too much on the mic, but I imagine that can be worked on, or he could have maybe gotten a manager to avoid that. But
yeah,
they've done absolutely nothing with him.
No, I mean, he personally has tried everything. I mean, he even had like a rip-off Velcro suit at some point. So I mean, he's tried everything to get over it. I think it purely is because they keep saying he can't connect with the fans, don't they? And it's like, I think if you let them, if you let him be him and have great matches and do the giant swing and all that stuff, then they would get behind him. But because he doesn't have this kind of larger-than-life cartoon persona that they can slap on a T-shirt, and just not as keen on him as someone like Jeff Hardy, who covers himself in face paint and comes out dancing like a weirdo. So I guess that's
nearly
that's
kills
thing,
himself every match.
Yeah, I mean, I guess one has very sellable points, and the other one they just don't see anything that they can market.
Yeah, so I think we're both in agreement with Jeff Hardy on this, as much as it pains me because, I know it's on the prelims, but and I know it's a meme to say he should go to AEW or New Japan or whatever, but I just don't think he has like much of a future there with anything apart from like, being Sami Zayn's muscle or bit part kind of players, which is a shame.
Yeah, I mean, Cesaro in New Japan would be very interesting. I think his kind of hard-hitting style, that could work pretty well.
I think they'd love it.
I'm sure he's smiling at his paychecks and thinking, "I'm fine, thank you very much." But,
So I don't like as a man. I think he's fine. I just, as the performer and as a fan looking in, I think he's just been wasted. But secondly, we've got obviously the most exciting match on the card. So exciting, I've only just heard of it. R-Truth versus MVP. Who've got in mind?
I would assume R-Truth. I mean, it's a difficult one to pick. I would assume R-Truth purely because MVP said like a few weeks ago that he was never going to have another match. So that would suggest that he's probably not going to go on to bigger things.
Yeah, I could imagine. That. And now he's got that sort of heel. I don't know, is it a heel or a face stable? He's got a stable at the moment. That's all I know. He's sort of managing now. So he might be moved on to do other things. And it's not, neither of them are spring chickens. But the only reason I reckon it might be MVP is because I think there might be some kind of interference from his clients, and R-Truth is kind of used comedically in around the 24/7 title, and he's a bit of a joke character, and I think that you can get more out of MVP in the long run than you can with R-Truth. You might be able to put in a decent mid-card program, but that's the only reason I say that.
No, you got a point.
It's weird to think that R-Truth used to be NWA champion as Ron McKillens and could properly go.
You got a point there, yeah. Because wasn't it like a few months ago he had a match on, I think it was about a year ago, he had a match on Main Event, whatever it was, something like that. And then it sort of went viral because people were like, he's had a good match. Like, he can still wrestle. He's just choosing not to. And it was actually a genuinely really good match.
Yeah, he just can't be asked. Fuck me, he's 48. Did not know that.
I know, he looks good. He looks good for his age. But I think because apparently Vince loves him and they're like best mates. And I think he just I think he sort of looks at it and goes, well, I'm having fun. He loves it. I'm getting paid. The fans seem to enjoy it. Fine. Let's just have a laugh.
He's just funny, and there's obviously more than room for kind of sort of joke characters like that.
Yeah.
You know, like every wrestling promotion needs some sort of stuff like that. But
yeah, you need the light relief.
Not much at stake with this, and they could have put something else on.
Anything else?
Yes, but I hate to be disrespectful and use the term piss break match, but
yeah.
If any of them are, it's that, isn't it?
Yeah. Also, isn't Gronk, or whatever his name, Rob Gronkowski, isn't he still the 24/7 champ at the moment?
Yes.
Maybe this will be where they get it back.
Yeah, because he's now he's playing NFL again with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, so they might need that back off him.
Yeah, so maybe this match, maybe he's going to show up and R-Truth will pin him or something. Maybe that's the only reason it's there. I don't know.
I think so, but the 24/7 title, they usually have it as like a bit between matches rather than a thing itself.
Yeah, true.
It's just I don't see the point of the 24/7 championship. It's just a PG, boring Poundland version of the hardcore title, in my opinion.
I thought it was fun to begin with when it was like people getting pinned on airplanes and at weddings and stuff. I thought it was kind of fun. I did enjoy it, but I think there's only so much you can do with it.
It's silly, isn't it? It's a bit of silliness, but it's kind of getting to a stage where it's starting to outstay its welcome, I feel.
Yeah. I quite like it. It's not going to happen, but it'd be great if during one of the Money in the Bank matches, if Gronk is just wandering around WWE headquarters and gets pinned. That would be fun. If he just happens to be in the background somewhere.
That would be great. Back in the old skits when whether the Godfather's hose becomes hardcore champion and things like that.
Didn't DDT have like a ladder that was a championship for a while because it fell on someone or something like that?
Yes, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Again, wrestling.
Fucking wrestling. Next up, we have the Fatal 4-Way for the SmackDown Tag Team Championship. There's the New Day, Miz and Morrison, whom I love. I'm quite fond of them as a tag team. I was very disappointed when John Morrison came back and was immediately eaten by Brock at the Royal Rumble, but at least they're doing something with him. Forgotten Sons, who, funny enough, I'd forgotten about before this, and Lucha House Party are in. Who have you got and why?
I think it's either going to be New Day or Miz and Morrison. I'm probably going to think New Day keep it because I think they're probably going to try and build some kind of New Day Miz and Morrison feud. Would be my guess because the other people in the match are the Forgotten Sons of the Lucha House Party. So
Yeah, it's pretty much a 2-horse race. I was personally going for Miz and Morrison for preference. I know it's very early to take the belts off them again. But it has changed hands, WrestleMania now, and then they are a bit more trigger happy to change belts with the tag titles. So I just have a feeling that through some sort of chicanery, the Miz and Morrison will get the belts back.
Yeah, you're probably right. It's definitely one of the two. I can't pick between the two, but
in terms of pick against you to spice things up.
Yeah, why not? We'll have a fight about it. No. in terms of the belt switching backwards and forwards, WWE don't care about tag teams. So that's, as the Revival have made clear recently, they do not care about tag teams.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We might as well just fuck it. They're going to put it on Lucha House Party. That's
Just for the hell of it.
Yeah. So we've got to settle our differences in a backyard wrestling match. Lucky Ollie Dean versus King Autismo. Quarantine social distancing match.
Yep. Okay. Fair enough. Big sticks at the ready. Why not?
Did you see that social distancing match Joey Janela put out where they were standing feet apart but selling the moves? It was hilarious.
Yeah, I did. No, he's done some interesting stuff in his career as well. But I think that's probably the least harmful of the ones he's done so far.
I think so too.
I was watching a documentary about him the other day, and it was just that. Have you seen him just him and it's Danzig, isn't it? Just dropping off a roof through a truck. It's ridiculous.
Absolutely not the case. Joey Janela just reminds me of a sentient can of Axe body spray or Lynx Africa or something like that. He just looks very, very scuzzy, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I just look at him and just think, you watched too much Jackass, didn't you? That's just everything.
Yeah, that's like you've definitely given at least one woman venereal disease in your lifetime. Is that
absolutely?
Next up, we have Bailey versus Tamina. Who have you got and why?
Mm-hmm. Does it matter? I would hope Bailey. I mean, Bailey was amazing in NXT. She was fantastic. I saw the NXT in London, and the reaction she got and the matches she had was amazing. And the heel turn, I really enjoyed it, and everything she did, and the way they handled it. But it just seems to be going nowhere now. I mean, it's good that they've kept the belt on her and that she's the main champion, because she should be. But they're not doing anything with it. They've just kind of gone, oh, here's Tamina, here you go.
Yeah, because I know they're trying to kill time until they inevitably have the Sasha versus Bailey singles feud at SummerSlam.
Yeah.
But it's kind of one of an obvious one on the card that they're just treading water with. And it's, as much as there's the whole meme about in the wrestling community on the internet about the Tamina train and all of that, of getting on the Tamina train for the title, but it won't happen. Bailey's going to retain. I have a funny feeling Sasha Banks will be involved in this one way or another, but
you'd think so, yeah.
Bailey retains for me. I much prefer heel Bailey to face Bailey. I just found the floaty thing a bit meh, but it's clearly not for my demographic.
I mean, Bailey as a face, I thought when it first happened, I was like, well, this isn't going to work, and then it massively did, and I was like, oh, okay. But then seemingly on the main roster, it just didn't translate, which is a shame.
No.
And in terms of Tamina, I always find her she fools me every time. Every time I see her on TV, I'm like, yes, she's amazing. She's going to be great. And then she gets in the ring, and I'm like, oh yeah, now I remember. Like, I forget every time that she's just rubbish, and every time I think she's going to be great, and then she isn't. What's that?
She has a good Samoan drop, and she looks the part, and that's all I can really say.
Yeah, I mean, she should be great, but for some reason it just isn't. So it's a shame. But yeah, let's see what Bailey can bring out of her.
Yeah, we'll see, because a lot of good wrestlers can have a decent match with a broom, so we'll see what happens. Right, we're gonna go to the women's Money in the Bank match. There is Asuka, Shayna Baszler, Nia Jax, Dana Brooke, Lacey Evans, and Carmella. Who are you going with for this one?
Mm-hmm. I find the way they've been listed there is interesting, because it is my order of preference. It goes dramatically downhill, like Asuka, Shayna Baszler, Nia Jax, Dana Brooke, Lacey Evans. Come on.
Yeah.
So I would hope either Asuka or Shayna Baszler. I'm thinking it's got to be Baszler, because surely the whole point of this is to set up Baszler Lynch 2. I can only think that's the only reason you would even do this.
Especially after the really screwy finish to their WrestleMania match, which infuriated me.
Yeah, I mean, my other half, who doesn't particularly care for wrestling but humours me, which is lovely of her, basically was sat there watching a bit of WrestleMania with me, and when Lynch won, she was like, "Well, that makes no sense," and I was like, "Yeah, I know," and she was like, "No, did you go into this the whole thing about like how does it make sense? Because surely you'd have Baszler win, and then Lynch is chasing her, and then she's chasing the powerful heel," and I'm like, "What have I done to you? So how did you end up being this person?" But she's completely right. It would have made so much more sense.
Yeah, they've got this aura of this unkillable monster. MMA background, absolutely dominant NXT champion, comes in and they sort of made her look like an idiot. Almost with that finish, it just made her look a bit silly. And I was a bit disappointed in that. Me and Flora turned to each other when we were watching and just went, "Oh, that was bullshit." Just really, I thought that match was one of the worst ones of WrestleMania purely because the finish just absolutely soured it for me.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense because where like you've got, if you're looking at the fork in the road that can go one way or the other, one way leads to a story and one way just shuts everything down. As far as I can see, it kind of cuts the legs off from Baszler and just ruins her kind of mystique.
Yeah,
Whereas the other way, you've got a long drawn out rivalry where you can have, it gives new life to Lynch because she's no longer just the man anymore. She then becomes this former champion chasing her former glory and all that side of things, and Baszler becomes this unstoppable monster, and then you've got a story. Whereas the other side, you've just got Lynch carrying on as normal and Baszler looking silly.
yeah, you've got something that could carry on through till SummerSlam and Survivor Series, and then with a break, be something that happens on and off.
Yeah.
The only reason I think it will be Asuka is I think they're waiting to put the belt on Baszler in front of a live audience, and the finish kind of informed my perception of what's going to happen in terms of they're not afraid to give Baszler a loss, unfortunately. And Asuka's been doing bits on. She has been one of the stars of quarantine era WWE, and I think she's going to sort of cheekily cash in and get it off Becky. Becky's going to get it back off her at SummerSlam or at some point. And then I think when crowds are back, they're going to have Baszler beat Lynch for the title and then go from there. But, quarantine and the WrestleMania result is the only reason I've went with Asuka instead.
Fair play. I mean, I would have absolutely no problem with Asuka winning at all. I'd be well behind it. So it would be cool if you did. I also like the way she's been featured recently has been fantastic as well. The fact that, I mean, the kind of, the foreigner shouting loudly in a different language is not great as a trope, but she's been fantastic with it. It's just it's a bit like, Twist by Korn.
Yes.
Whenever she starts shouting, that just makes you think of that. But it's wonderful because in the story that it was something like Vince was backstage saying, "Oh, it's so quiet, it's awful. Someone needs to make some noise," and she was basically like, "Hold my beer, here I go," which is fantastic.
I love Asuka. She's one of my favorite wrestlers in WWE, and she's just so much fun to watch. Her costuming, the way she moves around, her facial expressions, you just want to look at her, and she's also a very good wrestler. And she's just
brilliant.
Unique.
So you don't think Dana Brooke's going to win then?
No. I think she's going to win Batista's heart from what I've seen on social media. But that's about it.
Yeah, fair play.
And Lacey Evans, I think, Carmella just kind of bore me to tears. But Nia Jax is kind of the dark horse of the match. Like, it could be feasible. It's not like it's possible. Like the other three, it definitely won't happen. But it's a distant possibility. even though I know there's been problems with her injuring people a lot.
Yeah.
So there's that perception that she's not maybe the safest worker. I think, didn't she break Becky Lynch's nose at some point? I remember that happening.
Yeah, and she hurt someone recently as well, didn't she? Wasn't it Kairi Sane? I think it might have been, yeah.
I think that's why Asuka is doing the single stuff and not doing the Kabuki Warriors, because I think Kairi Sane's on the shelf. And there's that perception. And I remember her feud with Alexa Bliss, which was all around, fat shaming and stuff. And they have that anti-bullying campaign, Be a Star. She actually said the phrase Be a Star in there, which I thought was like soured me on the whole feud and just made it seem like a really cynical kind of brand synergy exercise.
No, it's I've never been a huge fan of hers, but obviously that match that I was talking about in London was Bayley versus Nia Jax, and Bayley managed to bring a really good match out of Nia Jax, which is why I have hope that she'll do the same for Tamina. But Jax just seems, I don't know, she seems to think she's amazing, and I just think she could be if she put her mind to it, but I think she's already there, so it doesn't seem to bother. So again, probably there as a bit of a catcher as well, to catch the others, which is concerning considering she's a liability.
Yes, she very much is. I did enjoy her cameo in the Royal Rumble when the guys were reticent to start hitting her, and she just smiled at them and then threw them out. I thought she did a good job there, and she's capable, but I think she's still a bit suspect in places.
Yeah.
Now moving on to the men's, we've got Daniel Bryan, we've got Rey Mysterio, we've got Aleister Black, King Corbin, Otis, and now AJ Styles.
One of these is not like the others. I mean, to be fair, it should be good. The first three there are all fantastic, and obviously the one on the end in a Money in the Bank match is just if they would have said to me 5 years ago or more, maybe if they'd have said AJ Styles in a Money in the Bank ladder match, I mean, what more do you need? If they'd have said that it was going to be based in the WWE headquarters in front of no audience, then I might have questioned it.
Yeah, I enjoy his work. I think he's gotten a bit better at promo over the last couple of years. I liked his work in the build up to the Undertaker's feud. I think now that he's in, that it adds another strong contender for it. I can see the only two I definitely can't see winning is Rey Mysterio, because he's. I just don't think it will happen as much as I love Rey. And I've heard that he's retiring at WrestleMania 2021, or he might be leaving the company soon. And Otis, I love it, but it's not. It'd be amazing, but I don't dare to dream, Ollie.
I don't know what my reaction would be if he genuinely won it. I don't know I don't know how I'd feel.
It would be at least be interesting. Whereas if they have King Corbin, because I know they have a tradition of heels winning this match. If they have King Corbin win but shithouse it, I will be very, very annoyed. That I think I'll leave the room if that happens, because I don't like it. I
guess it would make sense because he'd have like the Weasley cash-in kind of thing, and the sneaky way of becoming a champion. Or I suppose he could try and cash in and not get it as well. Would be like he'd be the perfect person for that. But
try and cash in on Drew, and then just get twatted. I think that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean that could be fun, but it just seems like a waste of what could be a good opportunity for someone else, I think.
Yeah, I don't think they'll do it, but it's not something that I can dismiss, and that's kind of disappointing.
Yeah. In terms of Rey Mysterio, similar to AJ Styles, if you said to me 20 years ago that Rey Mysterio is going to be in a Money in the Bank ladder match, first of all, I wouldn't know what one of those was because it wouldn't exist yet. But if Rey 20 years ago was in a Money in the Bank match, that would have been insane. But I just think he's still great, but he can't do the stuff he used to. So.
Yeah, he's still amazing, but he's 49 now, and you know the style he wrestles. There's just no way you can sustain it for your career. It's amazing he's still wrestling to the standard he is.
Yeah, I mean his legs must be just a mess. But bless him.
I sort of AJ Styles I could see, but and I think that's probably second or third most likely with Daniel Bryan or with Aleister Black. It'd probably be, it's most likely to be him or Daniel Bryan, I'd say. And I think AJ Styles was added as a bit of a curveball at the end. But I kind of really want it to be, and I have a funny feeling it might be Aleister Black, because I know Paul Heyman's very high on him. And I don't know, part of me just really thinks he's the one that needs it the most. So it's the one that makes the most sense, if you get me.
Yeah, I can hear that. And I think McIntyre Black would be an interesting match as well. And he's enough of he's not like a full-on face, so that still could work.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put my money behind Styles, just because I think Styles as the heel chasing the babyface McIntyre would make the most sense, I suppose.
Yeah, I know he is technically heel, but I like him enough that I don't sort of see him as a heel. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's difficult to dislike him, isn't it? Because he's so good.
I'm very upset that Gallows and Anderson got released still. I think that out of all of them, those two and Rusev were the ones that stung me the most.
Yeah, real shock and surprise, that one, because they'd been like a couple of days before they were on one of the main events of WrestleMania. So
yeah, and they wanted to leave, but then WWE signed them to really big contracts and then got rid of them anyway. So I don't. They kind of had that petulant phase of just signing as many people up and keeping them in just so other people couldn't have them. Which, again, with Vince and the way that company operates, does not surprise me.
No, it's his toy box.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, I'm going to switch my pick just to annoy you. I'm going to put my money behind King Corbin. I'm going to go by that.
You're going to go with Corbin.
Yeah, why not?
I'm going to go with Black.
Okay, fair enough.
We've got two more to do. We've got Drew McIntyre versus Seth Rollins, the Monday Night Messiah. Who are you thinking for that?
I'm thinking McIntyre, because I think it's too quick, and I think they're trying to build him.
Yeah, especially after him winning the Rumble, putting him over Brock. I don't think they'd take it off him after a month. I'd be furious if they did. And I'm just kind of bored of seeing Seth on top of on the top. Yeah, the Monday Night Messiah thing's decent, but it just sort of seems very derivative of CM Punk. And you know, he just came off that massive pay-per-view loss to Kevin Owens, and I know probably Kevin Owens would have been put in this match if he wasn't injured, or Roman Reigns, but if he was safe to perform, if it was safe for him to perform, but if I was being really cynical, I'd say I'd trust WWE to have Seth Rollins screw Drew over already and put him over, but I just think they're high on Drew. Vince loves Drew. They fed Brock. They gave him a clean win over Brock. So I think it's Drew for me.
I mean, they could do some kind of nefarious thing where Seth Rollins somehow manages to do it, somehow manages to cheat his way to victory that then would, be like a full rivalry, making him more of a heel and making Drew chase it. But I just think if you've had him, like you say, if you've had him beat Brock Lesnar and then immediately afterwards beat Big Show and then be pushed as the new face of the company, there's just no reason to take the belt off him.
Yeah.
Even if Rollins' promos have been amazing recently.
Yeah, it'd be kind of. I'm not as high on Rollins. I do rate him, and he's very good. I haven't been checking out his promos as much. I probably should have to give them a go, but I think McIntyre's a safe bet. But there's one final one. We've got Mr. Raw loudly himself, Braun Strowman versus The Fiend. Who've you got?
This is head versus heart because I would very much like to see Wyatt win it. And I kind of think he will, but there is still that part of me that just goes, every time there's someone I want to win it, they tend to go with the other person. So I'm going to go with Wyatt and cross my fingers and hope.
Yeah, I'm the same. Partly because obviously Goldberg very lovely exercised his creative control, apparently, allegedly, to go over the Fiend in Saudi Arabia. Apparently, it took the Fiend Bray a lot of convincing or to do it. He was not happy about it. And Goldberg, they wanted obviously to have Goldberg come back for SummerSlam, and then I heard the plans were for him to lose it to Roman Reigns then, when it was safe for Reigns to come back into work. But Goldberg made clear that WrestleMania and Saudi Arabia were the only dates he was doing in 2020, so they had to take the belt off him. So I think Braun is kind of a placeholder champion for to take it off Goldberg, and then I think they'll just put it back on Bray again, which annoys me doubly in a way, because they shouldn't have took it off him in the first place. But then I suppose you wouldn't have the Firefly Funhouse match, so it's kind of bittersweet in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm really hoping that's the story behind it. It seems to make sense, doesn't it? That if Goldberg was like, I am winning, and they kind of go, okay, we need someone to get it off him to then get it back on to Bray. So I guess, yeah, maybe it's just a sort of diversion.
Yeah.
To be fair, though, they're making the most of it. I was sort of saying earlier about how I think the main thing is about storytellers and about being able to tell a good story. And I think at the moment, Wyatt is probably the only one that I can think of that is an excellent storyteller. And he has made it a whole thing about, we were in the Wyatt family together, and you need to come home, and on that whole side of things. I think they've made the most of it, and they've actually made a story out of it, which is good. So it could actually be a really good match.
Yeah, I don't watch. Certainly, I don't watch the whole thing, Raw or SmackDown anymore. But I do check out the highlights of what happens and keep an eye on the feud. But the one match that's really got me, apart from obviously the gimmick matches, which are always a bit of fun, but the match that I'm really properly excited about is that Braun is this one. That's the one I'm most anticipating. The build has been great. Obviously, those two work well together, as people very close in the business tend to, because obviously last year's match of the year was Dustin Rhodes versus Cody. That was an amazing match. Obviously, Bret and Owen worked really well together. Triple H and Shawn worked really well together, as did Shawn and Razor and Kevin Nash. And so I just think that Braun and Bray will work really, really well together. And obviously, they'll want to put each other over as much as possible. But it's a shame that this kind of can be conceived of as a transitional championship, and that this is Braun's first go with the belt, because he definitely deserves more reigns than this. But this could be a really long program. I think this has legs to go for at least till SummerSlam, I'd say. But I'm worried that they won't.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I think it could do. I get the feeling that it's like the company have put them together. They've kind of shoved them into this match, and they between them have made something of it. I could be wrong on that, but it feels like they haven't, because they haven't really put anything in place to build to this. It just feels like they've gone, right, go out there and talk about it and talk about your match, and like they themselves have put the effort in to make it into something interesting. So from that point of view, I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of went, hold on, this isn't, this is your story. You've done it now, and we'll go our way. But I hope not. I hope they see something in it and keep it going.
Yeah, I hope so too, because it'd be a very good program of matches, I would say. Yeah. So we have a lot of common ground, because a lot of WWE storytelling match results aren't, especially if you have experience watching it and know what they go for. It isn't the hardest thing to predict. But yeah, we've had enough. You know, we've had enough differences for this to be interesting, with absolutely no stakes on the results. But it'll just be fun to watch. Is there anything you wanted to plug again, or say or plug before we wrap up the podcast?
Oh, I'll plug DOA again. Why not? It's DOA Wrestling UK. So DOA Wrestling UK is on Facebook and on YouTube. They are putting up matches almost daily at the moment, sort of archive matches, free matches, constantly. So if there's any of those you want to see, watch them. And if you can't stand my voice over them, you can always mute and watch on mute. So that's my top tip.
I will definitely be watching it with the sound on for your dulcet tones, Ollie.
Cheers.
And DOA, just for people who don't know, quickly, where is DOA based? When after this is all over, if they wanted to see live shows.
In the east primarily. So we've done shows in Ipswich, we've done them in Cambridge. Yarmouth, Great Yarmouth seems to be the home, to be honest. We've got a really nice venue there of the Drill House down in Yarmouth, which has been really good to us. So I think we're doing most of our main shows there. We're branching out every now and again. So
that's good. Well, that's DOA in the east, especially at the Drill House, and they're putting up loads of archive matches. Ollie Neve, thank you very much for being on the Hoodcast, and I'm sure we will. Whenever there's a pay-per-view that warrants it, I'm thinking of doing one for Double or Nothing AEW if you're down for that. But
yeah, cool.
Yeah, and I'll probably after that I probably won't do another one until there's a big one like a SummerSlam or another AEW one, because that's easier because they only do 4 or 5 a year rather than 12.
Yeah, more sensible approach.
Yes, yeah, more like a special occasion, than just something that they habitually do.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I have been Aaron Hood. You have been Oliver Neve, and whoever else has been listening has been whoever they are. Thank you. Stay safe, stay hydrated, and stay the fuck inside. Bye.
Bye.